What's up, guys? So you're about to check out a video I just did with Drew Harding. He's my co-founder at Neon Roots. He's my business partner who I started my first agency business with way back when. We did gaming, software, AR, VR, a lot of interesting stuff together. And a lot of people actually get confused about the origin story of Neon Roots and Rootstrap, and sometimes actually get the branding confused. So I'm going to explain that. We're going to talk about cryptocurrency, emerging technologies, and a lot of other good stuff. So check it out, and I hope you enjoy.
So the first thing I want to talk about, and for those of you joining on Instagram, we're going to be going live streaming the whole time here. But if you want to join on Zoom, you can get a copy of the video as well. So I'm going to be typing the link right here. You can either one is totally fine. And then we're going to be doing the Q&A section after we talk about some of our different topics. So just save your questions for then. Let me know if that doesn't work for you. Again, we'll be keeping the Instagram going, but if you want to join on Zoom, if it's a little more comfortable for you, that's fine too. What happened with crypto last week? We talked about the crash. Everyone's been writing me about that. I think it was last Wednesday when it dropped 50%, and there were a couple factors involved with gas fees. Tell us about what happened.
I mean, I think the biggest, what we saw was really more a result of general market action. So
Okay.
It was just following the market and the sell-off of like general market sell-off, which we saw across like all asset classes, including more traditional safe haven assets in like physical bullion, gold, silver, whatnot. So I really think it was primarily nothing more than that. That said, there definitely was there's some theories around how they were able to really push that sell-off on the crypto side. There's one related to BitMEX, which is like the primary futures trading exchange. In the middle of this sell-off, they actually had what they called a hardware kind of malfunction or AWS issue, which they had to like turn off. That actually caused things to settle a bit and stabilize.
It was network capacity, but explain what happened with mining as well, because I think that's an important factor.
Well, it's just the way the networks work in the sense of when there's a tremendous amount of market action and a bunch of people on the network trying to buy or sell, then the cost to send a transaction, which is designated in like also in Ether, but it's called GUE, referred to as gas. This is like the network cost. It skyrockets. We saw the same thing happen actually in the run up in 2017 when everything was appreciating.
And so let's also explain for those tuning in, if you've got cryptocurrencies in different exchanges like altcoins, you have to convert that to like your Ethereum or your Bitcoin wallets. So you're moving to multiple exchanges if you want to liquidate to fiat currency. As a result, you're getting hit with gas every time. Is that how it works?
If you want to go straight out to fiat, most people in the industry are going to go out to a stable coin. So they're going to stay in crypto, but they're going to move out of a volatile asset like Ethereum or an altcoin or Bitcoin into a stable coin, which is pegged to like US dollar. But yes, to your point, there's still a gas fee that can be even wallet to wallet, like not involving any real centralized exchange, but there are gas fees involved in that, and it got substantially high. So I actually have a screenshot of the safe fee around $11 to send a single transaction on Ethereum, which is essentially like 10% of the cost of one Ether. So of 10% of the asset to send.
Can we post that here?
Yeah, I'll dig it up and share it to you.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So $11 from one exchange, theoretically, if you were trying to move to fiat, you could be paying like $40, $50 in gas fees.
No, the 11 would have been like the full amount for any amount. Like, here's the thing, you can turn up your gas. There was actually a situation, someone paid, obviously probably a mistake, but they ended up paying something near $80,000 for a single transaction in gas fees. Yeah, so these things can happen in times of chaos, whether intentional or accidental. If you're trying to move, a couple million or $100 million worth of an asset, actually eating a, $10,000-$20,000 gas fee to make sure it happens instantaneously in a time of network congestion, may be to your benefit, right? Depends on what your goals are. But what's happening essentially too is you're competing for your transaction to be included in the current block. So you're incentivizing the miners to take your transaction over someone else's, because you can only stick so many transactions in a block. Otherwise, you're waiting for the next one and the next one and the next one. So if you bid too low, you're gonna be like the last one to be included in terms of their incentivization to, grab that.
So for those of you that are still rolling in, we're going to be talking about crypto. Drew and I formed Neon Roots in 2011, a boutique web app studio. We got to see the real crazy times of crypto. At a certain point, we were accepting cryptocurrency for services, if you remember those times. I don't think we did that much, but we were actually investing in crypto for assets, but also charging crypto for some of our clients. So suffice to say, you've been in this a long time, and you've seen a lot of the crazy roller coasters. Is this the craziest you've ever seen?
Probably not. It's a different type. The run-ups are probably even more chaotic, and it's FOMO, right? It's the fear of missing out when getting into an asset class that's appreciating. This is the herd mentality. Greed is feeding, oh, I need to get in. And that's really like the time as an investor or as a trader you're looking for to potentially start liquidating, because
I think the natural inclination was, whenever there was an economic downturn in the fiat, even in the gold or silver markets, people would invest in crypto. So we saw global sell-offs across all asset classes. Nothing's really safe. Art, diamonds, whatever. What were the crypto guys thinking? Like, they didn't expect this day to come. They always thought that it would skyrocket when your cash or your bank assets wouldn't be safe.
I'd argue that we haven't reached that point yet from an emotional or like technical understanding. It's a risk asset. It was designed as a safe haven. That is kind of like the intention, the goal. Most of the people intimately involved, I think, understand that, but in most people's minds, it's a risk asset. And I mean, it's extremely volatile, can be extremely volatile.
Right.
So to that point, if you need to go to cash, and we're not talking about the little traders here and whatnot. We're talking about like the large market makers that are playing. They're the ones creating the liquidity in the crypto markets, in the bullion markets, in the commodities markets, they don't care about the asset class, right? They're arbitraging and they're making their money across. So when they're getting margin calls in regular markets that require hard cash and they need to collateralize, they're going to pull out of like higher risk assets. So most of that being everything that isn't nailed down. I think what we may see here now is as money goes negative, interest rates go negative, as we possibly experience bank haircuts similar to Greece, back after the first recession.
We got some Greece in here.
Yeah, then people will likely start to kind of wake up and be like, okay, well, what are my alternatives in terms of where I can store cash? And with DAI and some of these stable coins able to provide interest bearing up to like 8%.
Where are we thinking the S&P is going to go? I think 1,800.
Man, I think we're definitely not done with pain.
Before you continue, I'm going to add you as a co-host because I want to get some video. So let me know if this works. Boom.
Yeah.
Got video. There we go. All right. So we're not done. So what do you think the next week holds? Next 2 weeks?
I mean, personally, I think a lot of people are in a staycation kind of mindset right now, where I get to work from home. I don't, I get to sit around and kind of like enjoy my time. Like, this is kind of weird. I'm stuck at home, but the first, paycheck missed,
Yeah.
the first like real pain, I think like the 4 or 5 week mark, which let's say we're 2 in right now, people's mindsets will probably start to shift.
Yeah.
I literally read right as I hopped on here, Italy just declared martial law. If we get anywhere near that situation and those types of orders come down, it's going to be a big wake up call for people.
Yeah.
So again, just from a psychological standpoint, that's going to kick the fear back up again. And from a market standpoint, people are going to try and go to cash.
What do you think about mental health right now and all the information we have? Is it too much? I feel like, is it possible that China was able to start restarting everything because they didn't have so much information and a lot of it was censored on WeChat? I'm concerned that people being glued to devices all day, it doesn't matter what side of the news right now. It's so much that it's going to fuck with the mental health problem we have in this country, which is already a significant one.
Well, like, yeah, to the China part, they have a different cultural mindset, and they have control from a governmental standpoint to be able to enact like very strict policies and centrally move things in a way that they were possibly able to flatten the curve, as they're saying,
Yep.
a lot faster.
Yep.
And
keep in mind that it all happened in one area. I think 600,000 people in Hubei, Wuhan, concentrated. We have north, south, east, west. It's a lot more scattered here in the United States, and and obviously the response is not as fast, right?
well, I would say that's more cultural still. I mean, China's massive from a geographic standpoint. Obviously, it was focused in one area, but it spread super fast. They increased rules and lockdown in more and more areas as a result of the spread and trying to have containment. The main issue with the states and a lot of like Western European countries was like their delay to respond, and also the cultural mindset of those nations themselves around how strict or heavy-handed the government comes in. Could be seen as a violation of our rights, could cause a backlash significantly. So they have to be more considerate of those things. I also think the people's mindset. I mean, I've talked to a handful of Chinese friends and people who live over there, colleagues, and they were all on board, willing to like collectively stay home, lock down, do what needs to be done for the better of their society, nation, city, culture. Right? We are very independently minded, society in the U.S. and a lot of like me first. As a result of that, we prioritize those needs differently, and kind of that collective mindset around like how to band together and act accordingly, arguably isn't as strong. But I've been surprised and actually quite it's been quite positive in terms of what I've seen from people in Los Angeles, which could be probably one of the nightmare cities, in terms of just being courteous, and generally trying to help, offering help. I mean, there was some pandemonium in like the toilet paper runs and various things at grocery stores, but that's somewhat to be expected. And generally I've seen more of a kind of a helping fellow man mindset so far. So
let's talk about the virtual world. You've been pushing Second Life. A lot of the communities you're involved with in the crypto communities gather in these Second Lives. I didn't really think 2020 was going to be here, the Second Life, but now I'm changing my mind, and I think it absolutely will be. Main Street's buying Oculus. People are digging back into VR, AR. We obviously started our company doing AR and VR in 2011. So what do you think about that?
Well, Second Life is like a specific kind of platform, one of the first. There's been multiple explorations around like open world, virtual world experience. Arguably, some of the most popular game platforms are really kind of open world, although proprietarily closed and centralized in their kind of authority and ability to control assets and whatnot, like Minecraft, for instance, Roblox, some of these other ones. And on that topic, like the voxel, which is that art style, that kind of blocky art style, has been one that's been highly adopted in these virtual worlds that are emerging on top of cryptocurrency rails. So
tell us about the news that is getting, so all the news that's censored around the world is getting stored in Minecraft. And for those that don't know what Minecraft is, tell us what Minecraft is, and then tell us how it's working with the news.
Minecraft's just a game platform. It's an open world game platform that allows you to basically build whatever you want. It's, you know, you can dig down, build big caverns, build huge monuments, houses, like anything basically. It's
Sims basically.
Yeah, very similar. A little bit more game dynamic. A lot of, yeah, they can be used in very interesting ways, experimented with in very interesting ways. What we're focused on again and more is those types of experiences living on top of like the trustless value transfer layer and economic or payment rails of blockchain. And I actually think we'll find that this was one of the primary use cases of blockchain in the long term, because I believe social networks will naturally evolve towards these avatar-based virtual world experiences. It's an actualization of ourselves, our personalities, and
we're going to need that escapism.
That, as well as just from a collaborative and productive standpoint. Like, this is great video conferencing. Most people are jumping now to this if they haven't already. In tech, obviously it's very common, especially in blockchain space where teams and talent are super distributed. But most, this has a lot of limitation when you can actually actualize as avatars in a virtual space, and then allow audio isolation. So like people talking over there on this side of the room can't hear these people. Someone can be presenting over to the side. So it's a much more like a conference or like a workplace feel. To your question about like censored materials and whatnot, or freedom of speech, there's a really interesting project called uncensoredlibrary.com, I believe is the URL, where a lot of individuals in countries that don't have the freedom of speech or expression available in the States have used Minecraft to publish in a library kind of format all their writings and what they're finding. And this is coming from, individuals, Middle East, Asia.
So news that's being censored in the Middle East or China, you can find in Minecraft.
Yeah, a lot of like papers around, from freedom fighters. Like you could argue some like more propaganda stuff, but that is freedom of expression is like, it's not really for anyone to decide what's.
So I ran an ad today on Instagram that got rejected, just talking about how COVID-19 is forcing us to learn remote work. So it was a total educational. I have ebook resources. I've worked remote most of my life. I started my company remote first. I just want to help people work remote. They rejected the ad. So it's going to be interesting just seeing what this country censors.
Well, you also saw, ironically, or not ironically, but coincidentally, kind of the need for information flow right now is higher than ever. Obviously,
we're not getting the right information.
Well,
giving us the right information.
Yeah, and what is the right information, right? There's what the government wants to like put us at front. There's social media, which what can you trust sometimes? But even with social media, like YouTube put out a release saying we are having to cut back staff on like in-person staff, and as a result, we're making our algorithms more strict, and you may see more things getting blocked or taken down or more content censored essentially in the next couple of weeks as a result of us not having the staff, which seems quite coincidental in the current situation. So there's all this,
So you've been a big console gamer, you've been a big PC gamer. What do you recommend for people in the next couple of weeks start getting into something? Assuming you can even order this on Amazon, what's good to start playing?
It really depends on what you want. I mean, PC gaming has great.
Sports. I think sports is a big one. People want to play sports.
Well, you can play that on any type, right? It's the pros and cons exist more in like not just like the subject matter available, but like what you prefer. Consoles, you have controller built in. You can do this with PC gaming too. PC gaming, you also have a computer which could be used for lots of other if you're an illustrator, 3D modeler, whatnot. If you're more on the go, which most people probably aren't right now, things like Nintendo Switch are really great. I love that one for travel. It's limited in terms of its titles, but again, you can dock it, play it on like a more of a console style, or you can like play the actual unit itself. Personally, I think we're going to see a lot of attention and a lot of pickup on VR.
Yep.
And I think things like
you own an Oculus right now?
Yeah, for sure.
Which one do you own?
Quest.
Okay, remember we used to play the DK1? Brian Champson brought it to the
original.
The original that when it was on Kickstarter.
Yep, we bought. We have one of the original betas. Yeah.
Where's that? Who's got that?
I think it's down in Uruguay. I think you sent it down to those guys.
Right. So we got Oculus. What about Magic Leap? Is this coming on the market anytime soon?
I mean, they're working really hard.
I've heard it was amazing. I've heard people say it's incredible.
The focus is, I think a little different. In more, they're also trying to figure out the gesture-based movement stuff, which is super important because right now you're holding two joysticks. Oculus just did an update where in some experiences you don't need the controllers, but you're still limited in the sense of you don't have like all the toggle and the menu pull up. So you kind of have to figure out how to make all that gesture based.
Yep.
That's also a learning curve for a lot of people. It is more intuitive to have the free hands, and Magic Leap obviously that's a lot of what they were initially focused on in terms of like, I'm not entirely sure about like their tech. I haven't looked in or played with it where it's at now. I know they're growing. I know a lot of attention has been placed on all these companies, including Zoom, what we're using right now. And their stock has actually there's actually a Zoom stock that's spelled like the normal Zoom, but it's not tied to the actual tech company.
I think it's food and beverage, isn't it?
Maybe. And I actually think you're right. But people just charged into it thinking it was they were buying
everything. I mean, I'll start trading again, probably going long versus doing anything short anymore. I don't know, but I kind of regret maybe selling that one. But what can you do? All right, let's do any major buy or sells advice. And full disclaimer here: we are not professional experts or financial experts, so bet at your own risk type thing, just so we cover that liability. But what do you suggest as somebody who's trying to find some interesting financial opportunities right now? Trading spirit.
Yeah, I hold a contrarian standpoint and like viewpoint and like basically any market activity. So when everyone's coming to me, which was happening this last week, and saying I'm selling out of my Ethereum, I'm selling out of this asset, I started to go in.
Sure, I bought Ethereum. It's all my cold storage, and that's it.
As gold and silver fell off a cliff, and it got to like ridiculous, like the $12 handle on $11 handle, maybe on silver, over 100 to 1 GSR gold silver ratio, which is wild. I was getting in, so it's one of those things where I think it's more important too. People talk about like a diversified portfolio. I think people need to think outside of like a diversified portfolio in stocks. I think they need to start thinking about like a diversified asset portfolio, meaning cash, equities, stocks, possibly commodities if you're comfortable with all that. Like hard assets in the sense of gold, silver, bullion, not stocks. The physical, by the way, and paper price of gold and silver started to diverge pretty significantly last week. This is accounted for in the premiums when you're purchasing physical. So even though you're seeing the $12, $11 handle in silver, you're going to be very lucky to actually be able to buy that. I think the premiums are up to 30%.
Where do you buy some of these altcoins? Coinbase.com. Only you can get probably Bitcoin, Ethereum, the main ones. But what are you're telling people that a lot of other ones? Where can they get some of these?
Well, I'm talking about like physical gold, silver right now.
But, you're talking about actual gold, silver.
Yeah. Because like again, it's like, and then also yes, cryptocurrencies in the sense of crypto. Coinbase actually has quite a few like alternative or altcoins right now that you can get into. I prefer to push people towards decentralized exchanges, which means you're basically in control of your keys and your coin. They come with a little bit more personal responsibility. You have to be smarter about your security, just in the sense of like you're in control. There's no custodian, but we've seen numerous centralized exchanges get hacked too, so there's no guarantees on either side. Uniswap.exchange is probably the best.
We'll post these links for everybody along with that screenshot Drew was referencing.
Yeah, that's probably going to be the most common decentralized exchange. There's also some really cool ones like 1inch, which are aggregates, and they look at all the decentralized exchanges and they'll do splits across multiple to make sure you have the lowest amount of slippage in terms of that premium or excess you're going to pay. If you like mobile wallets, obviously Pillar Wallet, the project I'm working on, we have a built-in offers engine, which we aggregate a number of token swap and decentralized exchanges directly in there, give you the best rate. So there's a number of options that are available. But if you want something very bank-like, controlled, somewhat custodial, more restriction, Coinbase is probably going to be your best bet.
Cool. So let's jump into Q&A. Good time to post your questions here. Let's start with, how will autocrats take advantage of this situation? Putin, Kim, all those good guys.
I mean, that's like my biggest concern is we're seeing a bit of the Hegelian dialectic play out in the sense of, problem, reaction, solution. They, whether manufactured or not, or natural, whatever, opportunities or situations like this present opportunities for them to tighten up travel, to tighten up rights, to tighten up various things. Those that are more heavy-handed and already kind of have that mindset or not, I would not be surprised to see them tighten up. In the States, again, I'm already seeing a lot of people posting about social distancing and, shelter in place are even getting too close to martial law type situations without enough justification, in the sense of like,
well, hopefully we won't need a martial law if everyone just kind of behaves and follows the order.
We won't have martial law, is that what you're saying?
I hope not. I mean, if everyone follows, this is the first time I think this country has to really respect a government order. We're not used to that.
It's like, yeah, and again, obviously there's something bad going on. There's this, definitely like a virus infection out there. That said, influenza, like the average cold on a yearly basis, the hundreds of thousands are die from this, so it's just, I want to understand and ensure as an individual that the response matches the threat. And that's hard to, like, we're being told, yes, that is the case. I think, yeah, stay at home, practice social distancing. That's just kind of common sense, personal responsibility. Yes. Fine with doing that. Fine with that being given as advice. But again, it's just, there's a line, right? And everybody's kind of got their own opinion on that line. And I think that's in terms of like, yeah, some of the more, again, heavy-handed or centralized authorities out there. You're seeing also, taking it a step further, you're seeing that China, as they already have like the visor with the camera you can do facial recognition and it tells you who has what. They are now doing, so they're checking body temp of everybody that they're looking at on the street. How does that, like, it cascades quickly.
Sure.
Yeah. Oh, we're putting up cameras because we want to make sure that we're checking the body heat and make sure no one has a fever. Right. Well, we're just going to keep them up and running now. And we're going to put out some facial recognition on there now. It's just slippery slope stuff. Just
what businesses will come out stronger, do you think?
Virtual. I mean, we're already hearing it. The virtual conferencing, the remote work, the Notions, the Figmas from a tech standpoint, where collaborative workspaces, entertainment. obviously streaming services, game consoles, game studios and development, all that makes sense. Yeah, I think there's education. I think we're going to see a pretty big shift, or rather we'll start to really see the expansion of virtual learning, and like virtual learning services, even possibly like homeschooled socialization, where there's like part of the work that individual parents or houses are doing for homeschooling. There's also this like group space where they're meeting and they're able to socialize with other people in like a digital virtual way. I think, yeah, a lot of those opportunities I think are going to be common in tech generally. So
What this is one's coming from IG. What's the deal on Bitcoin Ethereum correlation lately? Shouldn't they be thriving right now with a global uncertainty? Very good question.
yeah, again, that goes back to like right now, the immediate reaction in any sort of a market sell-off is going to be sell anything that's not nailed down, get to cash. I mean, look at what the dollar's done against everything, especially other currencies.
Yeah.
Now, long term, and how it was the design of these things, what they were meant to be, obviously, were safe haven assets to act as a release valve in these types of situations. They've spun the money printers back up. They're lowering interest rates. We're about to go negative. If they start doing haircuts, all these things, I believe we're going to see the transition from a risk asset to a safe haven, and we're going to start to see people moving into and treating cryptocurrencies as they were designed, which are like safe havens. So I don't think we've reached that point yet. I think the initial sell-off actually makes sense, and I think the next step, and if crypto can't find its place as a safe haven asset, I would actually debate the long term of like what this is. Is it just going to be like this play toy virtual money, magic internet money as it's been coined, right? Or is it actually going to act as a true financial asset class against all the other offerings that exist out there in like the financial system? So.
What are Trump's post-corona election chances?
Oh man, that really, there's a lot of time before. I mean, not in the scope of like the big scope, but in like what we have between what we know now and when the election happens, a lot can happen. It's very hard to predict. I obviously, this is a really hard thing for any person in authority, especially a president. Anything he does can be positioned as, poorly. I don't know if, yeah, that's a hard one to say. I also think there's a good chance that either he or one of the presidential candidates will likely get the virus itself, right? So that
possible 70-80% global exposure, Well,
also the demographic, right? All our presidential candidates are now old, significantly old in some cases. So they're kind of in that high risk group. It's hard to say where this goes. Any misstep though is going to be capitalized by the Democratic Party and nominees for sure.
What's the economic impact in numbers if it's something you can calculate or project?
I have no idea at this point. I would say though that the real damage is that it's the economic fallout of supply chain lockup.
And I don't think that any government has actually done risk assessment of what this will do, in terms of a response.
They've run. Oh, they got the supercomputers running. They've definitely like done projections around like what we're losing, what we could potentially lose, how many could die, what is the impact of that. The flip side is, there was also, we're on the verge of a major pension crisis. Everybody who is reaching that age of retirement, looking to cash in their 401ks, looking to, put a huge strain on the social security system. So this is actually, again, leveraging, every virus has a silver lining, especially when you're looking at it in like kind of very cold macroeconomic terms. This actually might relieve some of the strain. So it's the impacts and the correlating factors is really hard to talk about. And yeah, I expect the fallout will be pretty significant. I'm more concerned too, not like the macro, but Joe on the street. You know, if people start, there's, I forget the exact numbers, but unemployment, 500,000 Canada, I think, applied versus this month over the normal 27,000 a month. So it's happening. Like,
you're going deeper too in third world 2.5 countries where you can't just quarantine at home, either due to your living situation or other reasons, and what unemployment,
well,
even available for some of those countries that are already in a recession.
You shut the schools too, and people who like, you know, two working adult families that, you know, they got to bring home, you know, the bacon. If the kids are at home now, one of them's got to stay home, or they've got to juggle that. It's a new expense to find someone else or pay someone else to like watch, or, you know, so it's compounding effects, right? So I don't think we'll really realize the impact for some time. And I think the real potential preview of what this could look like will be seen again at like that 4 or 5 week mark. And we'll see, and depending on how long this lasts, you know, I don't, yeah, it's hard to.
This one's from Instagram. Any insight on changes in real estate?
I think you'll definitely see some good deals. My brother, he's got some properties out in Seattle area, King County, Washington. His realtor sent him a pretty interesting email saying like the deals out there, granted they're hurting, so they're kind of like really trying to churn up business, but the deals are already starting to show. They're going to be giving out money in terms of lending and loans. It's going to be really easy to get a loan. Interest rates are going to be really in your favor. But people who need cash because of other issues, or they just need to go to cash to get comfortable, like any income properties, Airbnb, investor types, likely going to be liquidating some of those properties too. So I would expect it'll take longer, but you'll see some deals. Now, that could quickly shift back to it being the ultimate safe haven. Everybody needs a roof over their head. So I'm not sure how long that window might be open or how like deep those effects will go. But if you got your eye on it, I would expect there to be some deals, especially immediately in like the kind of this quick fallout of fear of like, oh, I need to get into cash. I think something more is coming. Like, let's liquidate this asset. So.
This question is: we are clearly not ready for biowarfare. Is this a rehearsal for such a situation here? I don't know what the question is. But
yeah,
I don't think anybody's ready.
This is some nasty stuff. Here's the thing too. It's the perfect, let's go a little conspiracy because I know you love that shit. It's the perfect cover, right? You have a failing banking system, let's say, right? They've been kicking the can since 2007, 8. They know they can only do it so long. The crack, they need more crack to keep the addiction, and it's getting to a lethal standpoint. So, okay, we need to pull the rug out, or it's going to go down anyways. We can manufacture this crisis, or it happens naturally, and now we can leverage it. And it's the virus's fault. It's not the financial games and all the 30,000 derivatives of derivatives of derivatives that we've created. It's the virus's fault. Also, now people are up in arms, things are happening, banks start closing, access to money becomes tighter, and instead of banding up in groups and getting together and protesting on the street because everyone's afraid of like getting together because they don't want to get sick and practice social distancing, like it's a really nice scenario if you're trying to execute or roll out like a slow collapse or introduce a new paradigm or whatnot. So I don't have really a take one way or the other, but I like to critically think about these things and evaluate like what it means or what it could mean. So like the biowarfare piece could also in itself just be a cover for the bigger, like this system cannot sustain how it's going. Fiat currencies, we can't just print. Anyone who's read any sort of economic theory, you cannot debase your currency this way. This is the fall of the Roman Empire. Like the exact same thing. They would take little pieces out of the coinage, and so your coin was worth less. But it's and inflation, et cetera, et cetera. So you're just, yeah, instead of people running out, banding up and like throwing bankers over light posts, Tale of Two Cities style, they're all stuck at home because they're afraid of a hidden, unseen enemy in a virus. So there's a little conspiracy love for
Grim but fair.
I just, it's interesting. If nothing else, it makes for a good novel.
All right, last questions. What about universal basic income? Right-wing Republicans supporting direct payments to Americans with no strings attached right now, at least for a few months. Will it be embraced?
By who? The people getting paid free money? Of course. I especially American mindset. This goes into though, like, it's a very quick stopgap. It is a Band-Aid. At the same time, if you are asking people to stay home, if they are losing their ability to work, the average person needs to kind of be supplemented, especially if, the banks are being bailed out, major corporations are being bailed out. It's always like the top that's taken care of, but like the person doing the work is kind of, the fact that they're even considering this is, I think it's needed, unfortunately. There's also political considerations. Again, back to the Trump thing. Like he wants to do anything he can to help, like make administration look good and keep everybody like happy with how things are being run. It's a way to assuage what may become like the growing anger, resent, for like what we're feeling or what the situation may turn into. I think we haven't reached that mindset yet. I think a lot of people are still like having this kind of like staycation thing. But yeah.
I think that'll change in the next week or so.
Yeah, we'll see.
Let's do a couple more. We got last minute. Can you talk about DAI? Is it a place to hold cash or no? We talked about that a little bit earlier, but
DAI hit some big challenges in the last couple weeks too. They're having to do another like auction, a maker auction around bringing more collateral. They're short on being able to collateralize against DAI. Long term, I think DAI is a great thing. I think stablecoins have their place. I would like to see a new stablecoin that's less centralized or has less central authority or control around it. People are working on this. I'm closely following one project that's doing this. But yeah, other than DAI, there's also USDC. There's Tether. There's a bunch of different alternatives. DAI is great in the sense that all these DeFi money Legos and protocols and primitives that have been built are really all focused on that as the core asset class, and it allows you to lend, borrow, stream payments, do all sorts of great things. It has more exposure into like those systems and the potential businesses of that stuff. So I would watch it right now. I wouldn't go heavy into DAI at the moment. I think some exposure would be good. If you believe long-term in it, this maker auction and what's coming up soon is possibly a good opportunity to get in base level or very low level again and kind of participate in the growth of that ecosystem. I'll be looking to support that as well, because I think the project's important for the like kind of long-term of the ecosystem.
So last question. And then for those on Instagram, it's link.roots.ly/live. If you want to get a copy of this, Drew's going to post a screenshot he referenced earlier, and then resources. And then we're going to be shutting this down after this question. So thanks again, everyone. Do you think that the Fed is going to require the UBI to issue via their blockchain currency methods?
From what I've heard, it's all census based. So they're looking to have you fill out kind of like census style, and then it'll be mailed to your address. A digital alternative to that would actually probably be smarter. I do not know if the infrastructure exists at a national level to support that. I would not be surprised to give you some extra though on that question, or to see the introduction of nation-backed digital currencies during this time period. Like, so stable coins, they're actually being issued by the governments and backed by the governments themselves. Now, if it's just a digital form of another money printing game and asset, like, yeah, it doesn't help anybody. There needs to be some sound economic policy along with that. But purely as the benefits of like digital payment rails and like whatnot, they may consider that. I haven't heard anything like that, but that would be interesting. Yeah.
Cool. All right. That's it, everyone. You can follow Drew Harding is Drew C. Harding on Twitter.
No, it's just Drew Harding.
Drew Harding on Twitter. He's very active there. Any other projects that you want to plug?
Yeah, Pillar Project or Pillar Wallet on the App Store or Google Play. That's again a decentralized, self-custodial mobile wallet. Be introducing huge updates here. A lot of DeFi integrations coming up, personal identity control management, and another one around like the metaverse, virtual world stuff, and the physical wearables, and brand economies. Something a side project working on called MetaFactory at the MetaFactory. That's another fun one if you're kind of interested in that space and what's happening.
Cool. Thanks for coming on today, Drew.
Of course.
All right. Talk soon.
Cheers.